Hey everyone, and welcome to WDIM News. This is the first episode of a new podcast that I'm starting in 2023. Here I'll be talking about recent entertainment news with a focus on science fiction projects and sharing my thoughts with you. I would love for you to be a part of this community, so if you had something that you would like me to talk about, let me know in the comments and I'll try and answer you in a future podcast, or at the very least answer your comment. Also, you can do me a huge favor right now by hitting the like and subscribe buttons if you have not yet. It is really the best way to help me out that does not cost you a penny. Since this is the beginning of a new year, we have a lot to talk about, and I thought I would start this off by discussing some of the projects that I am most excited for this year. Now, if you do follow this channel, you know that I focus heavily on Star Trek, so let's just go ahead and talk about what we can expect to see in the coming months from the folks at Paramount. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about is the upcoming third season of Star Trek Picard. Now, if you do watch this channel, I've been doing a lot of videos on the subject lately, so I won't spend that much time on it. I just put out a video that had some notes about the upcoming season, mainly that Terry Matalas confirmed that Dr. Pulaski would not be a part of it. He also confirmed that the Enterprise E would not be a part of the upcoming season. If you remember, we will be seeing the Enterprise D and the Enterprise F, the brand new ship that has been in Star Trek Online, if you follow that game. So we won't be seeing the Enterprise E, but we will be seeing the Enterprise D and the Enterprise F, and we won't be seeing Dr. Pulaski. But a lot of people are coming back. Dr. Pulaski question actually got brought up because of the return of Professor Moriarty. Because if you remember, in Professor Moriarty's first appearance, it involved Dr. Pulaski. So she's kind of the reason he went off the rails, because she wanted to design a program that could defeat Data. So there's also a theory out there that the reason that Moriarty is part of the season is because Lore is one of the bigger villains, and they decide to bring Moriarty out to help defeat Lore because he was designed to defeat Data. I'm excited for this vision of Terry Matalas. A lot of people might not know, but each of the 3 seasons of Star Trek Picard has kind of been run by a different person or a different group of people. Season 1 was run by Michael Chabon, who went on to become an executive producer of the show. But in season 2, Kiva Goldsman and Terry Matalas were kind of running the show. And in season 3, it's fully Terry Matalas. So he seems to be really involved. If you follow his Twitter page, he answers a lot of fan questions on Twitter. He really wants to do a proper send-off for the Next Generation crew, which I think is nice. You know, if you remember the finale of All Good Things, it was a weird series finale because it was never meant to be an end for that crew. They had already signed contracts to be in movies after that. And then Star Trek Nemesis was kind of an ending for a few characters. I mean, we saw Riker move on to the Titan. We obviously saw the first death of Data. And of course, Riker and Troy got married. And remember that Terry Matalas has said that not all the crew is safe. My bet so far is on Deanna Troi not making it out of the season. If you have another theory, let me know in the comments. But maybe we can get a betting pool going on which Next Generation crew member does not survive the 3rd season. One of the reasons we might not see more than one death is that there's been talks about a few characters getting spin-off shows or continuing on in other shows. I've heard rumors about Seven. She's the one that seems to be getting the most traction in the rumor mill, about either her getting her own show or moving on to another show. I could definitely see her sliding into a Section 31 show. She seems like that kind of ambiguous character that would be a part of Section 31. And I'm sure Section 31 would love an ex-Borg drone as part of their collective, so to speak. So I could definitely see Jerry Ryan and Seven moving on. Michael Dorn and Worf, he's been pitching a show for a long time about himself. Not about himself, about his character. So I could definitely see Worf showing up somewhere else, or maybe getting his own miniseries. You know, the Klingon Empire is so vast, it really lends itself to a show itself. So Worf leading a show that had a lot to do about the Klingon past and Klingon Empire, I think that would work. And then, of course, Riker. Jonathan Frakes is such a stalwart in the Star Trek community. I think he directed 2 episodes of the upcoming season. He's directed episodes of every show since The Next Generation. You could definitely see him showing up again behind or in front of the director's chair. Maybe even Gates McFadden. I know that she's been lobbying for her character to return, so maybe we could see a Dr. Crusher spinoff. The release date for the upcoming season is February 16th, 2023, and it will run for 10 episodes until April 20th. Now, then the question becomes, what's next? What's after Star Trek Picard? Because we really don't know. There are two likely candidates. The first being, and the one that I think it's going to be, although it might not, is the second season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. The reason I say that is because it was filmed and completed before the upcoming fifth season of Discovery. I think it was reported that Strange New Worlds, the second season, filmed from February 1st, 2022 to July 1st, 2022. And the upcoming fifth season of Discovery filmed from June 13th, 2022 through November 20th, 2022. You know, the only reason I say that that might not be the case is because we actually have a full trailer, or I think it was a teaser trailer for Discovery, and we only have one scene for the upcoming season of Strange New Worlds. So usually they put the teaser trailer out for the next show. The main story, I guess, that we will catch up with on Strange New Worlds is what will be happening with number one, Una Chin Riley, played by Rebecca Romijn. There's a few comic book series going on right now, and one of them has to do with Strange New Worlds, and it's called the Illyrian Enigma Review. In the first issue, it delves into what's going on with number one right now. Now, I believe these comic books are canon, so they might have some details about the upcoming season in the upcoming comics. I think there's only one issue out so far, and I've not read it yet. The comic book series that I am keeping up with is just called Star Trek, and it's been 3 issues so far. I've got videos on each of those. You should definitely check those out. Those comic books are pretty good so far, and they deal with Benjamin Sisko coming back from the wormhole. And again, these comic books are supposed to be canon. So if you want to find out what happens with Benjamin Sisko, I suggest you check that out. But anyway, back to Strange New Worlds. So we'll definitely be starting out with looking at what's going on with number one and how she's getting back onto the ship. If you remember, her character, while in the pilot, The Cage, was not in the regular series. The actress, of course, was. She was recast as Nurse Chapel, another character that's on Strange New Worlds. So it'll be interesting to see how they bring number one back, because she eventually has to leave for good because she's not on the ship when Captain Kirk takes over. Speaking of Captain Kirk, he's supposed to play a bigger role in season 2. Now, he was introduced in the last episode of the first season, played by Paul Wesley, who I thought did a decent job. I saw some interviews with him where he definitely said he tried to make his own Kirk. He didn't want to do a Shatner reboot, so to speak. And I think that definitely plays out. You know, I think that was one of the main concerns, was that he didn't seem to be a lot like Will Shatner, but I guess that was what he was going for. So if that's the case, then I think he nailed it. He will play a bigger role this season, and it'll be interesting to see if he plays a bigger role going forward, because of course, eventually he takes over the ship. There were some images that were released from filming the second season, and it showed that him and La'an were on an away mission together. That being very interesting because La'an, of course, being a descendant of Khan Noonien Singh, Khan being known as possibly Kirk's worst villain. So I'm really wondering how this plays out, because of course Kirk doesn't recognize Khan when he hears the name in the episode Spacey during the original series. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out between these two characters, because eventually, obviously, there's bigger stakes. Now, of course, we also have a very exciting crossover with the animated series Lower Decks during the second season of Strange New Worlds. We will be seeing the live-action debuts of 2 characters from that series, Brad Boimler, played by Jack Quaid, and Beckett Mariner, played by Tawny Newsome. It'll be really cool to see how these crews interact. I know that during a Comic-Con panel, Anson Mount stated that he saw his character animated. So that tells me that we're going to see both crews on both shows, so to speak. I'm really looking forward to that. That's something that Star Trek's never done before. So it'll be really fun to see. I'm really psyched that Star Trek is doing stuff like that. And I like that they've kind of combined my 2 favorite series that are going on with Star Trek right now, those being Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds. One thing that I think is really interesting about the second season of Strange New Worlds is that it was actually being filmed while season 1 was released. So the actors and crew were not able to react to any criticism or any fanfare from the first season with their performance in the second season. Usually you do see that with most series between seasons. So we won't really get to see that till the third season of Strange New Worlds. So really, I'm looking forward to the second season of Strange New World and seeing if it can rekindle the magic of the first season. Another thing that I think will be interesting to watch is that, Anson Mount's portrayal of Captain Christopher Pike has been so beloved that I start to wonder if his portrayal of the character will become everyone's favorite captain over, let's say, a Captain Kirk or a Captain Picard. I mean, it's only for one season. Well, I guess you could say a season and a half since the character appeared in the second season of Discovery. But, he's doing a great job as that character. He's a great ambassador for the brand. I really think that Paramount is positioning Star Trek and Strange New Worlds as their flagship, so to speak, series for the franchise. So don't be surprised if you start to hear people say that they like Anson Mount's portrayal of Christopher Pike more than, let's say, Bill Shatner as Captain Kirk or Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard. I'm not there yet. It's only like a season and a half, but we'll see. So the next series after Strange New Worlds will be the 5th season of Star Trek Discovery, probably. Or, like I said, it might be next. Expect either in April. Because Star Trek Discovery already has a teaser trailer out, that might mean that they're next. The only kind of news that's been released, I think, about the 5th season of Discovery has been that Kovich, the part played by David Cronenberg, will be playing a larger role in the 5th season of Discovery. Now, in the last season, we saw that he was playing a bigger role at Starfleet Academy. So that could mean that the Starfleet Academy as a whole will play a bigger role in the season. We know that Sylvia Tilly transferred to Starfleet Academy, and I believe that she is once again listed in the cast of the 5th season after leaving the show in the 4th season. So that may be another hint that Starfleet Academy is going to play a bigger role. The one character I really wonder about is Gray and the return of Ian Alexander. I really thought that character was interesting. I liked their relationship with Adira. I actually found Gray more interesting than Adira, and it looks like Adira actually has a bigger part now. So I wonder if Ian Alexander is going to return or if they just aren't on the show anymore. I know that also Odette Fair as Charles Vance will be playing a bigger role this season as well. He's another fan favorite character, so I look forward to his return. And then another actor was added as a cast member for the season, a character named Rayner, who's played by Calum Keith Rennie. He's been in a lot of stuff. Most recently, he was in the Umbrella Academy. I think he was in the 2nd season. He is a Starfleet officer. I think he's another captain. I don't think he serves on the Discovery, but I might be wrong. But besides that, I don't think a ton of news has been released about the 5th season, which again leads me to believe that it's the season that we're going to see after the next season of Strange New Worlds. And I also wonder if this will be the last season of Discovery. Of course, every Star Trek show wants to make it to 7 seasons. The reason that a series would want to make it to 7 seasons is that it would go into syndication, which isn't that much of a concern anymore with streaming series and things of that nature. So I don't know if Discovery makes it past season 5. Something I'm going to talk about in a little bit is that we haven't heard a lot from Paramount about the future of any of these shows. So I wonder if Discovery is going to be complete after season 5. I know the ratings have dipped every season. It's consistently one of the worst reviewed shows that Star Trek has, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because I believe that Picard is the worst show, but it's also the most watched show. So try and figure that out. So I guess we'll have to see what happens with Discovery after season 5. I am not a huge fan of the show. I liked the first 2 seasons the most, and it's kind of dipped. Really, it was the reveal of the burn. For some reason, I'm like a spurned lover or something. I've never been able to get over the reason for the burn. I think that they could have gone a lot cooler ways with that than making it because of a child, just getting angry. So they never got me back after that. So, but we'll see. I know a lot of people like that show. There's a lot of people that work hard on that show. I don't want to disparage them. It's just my opinion. So we'll have to see what happens with Discovery Season 5. I'll definitely be watching it. Let me know in the comments if you still watch the show and how you feel about it. Usually when I do a video about Discovery, the comments are not very happy. So let's try and keep them nice today as well. And then I think the next season that we will see is the 4th season of Star Trek Lower Decks. I've gone on record many times. I love this show. I think the 3rd season was another big hit. I think it gets better every year. Although I will say that the Peanut Hamper episode was a big swing and a miss for me. I'm okay with following, ancillary characters for a whole episode and then having them work back in. That episode was just too weird. I know Mike McMahon. I know Mike McMahon can get weird with Rick and Morty and all that stuff. It was just too weird for me. I they didn't lose me for good, but I don't need to see that character again. But I know that I will be seeing that character again because Mike McMahon has already stated that in this 4th season, Peanut Hamper will return and will meet the evil computer Agamus. That was, of course, voiced by Star Trek legendary actor Jeffrey Combs. So I do love Jeffrey Combs. So maybe that will balance out how much I don't like Peanut Hamper. It was just too weird. That episode was just too weird. I don't know. Let me know if you enjoyed that episode. But of course, this season we got the sequel to the Crisis Point, which I thought was a great episode. Then we got to go back to Deep Space Nine. We got to see Sulu. So that's a great series. Mike McMahon's doing a great job. I love that series. And I already mentioned that they're crossing over with Strange New Worlds. So I guess we'll get to see if maybe after that episode of Strange New Worlds, will we see that continue on into the next season of Lower Decks in animated form? I think it will, especially like I said, after Anson Mount's comments about him seeing his character in animated form. I think we could see that. I think we could see the Enterprise on Lower Decks. So I look forward to that. As far as when we will see it, I think the voice work is almost complete. I know they started in 2022 in June, and they said the animation was close to completed in July. So I'm not 100% sure on how long it takes to voice a season, but I don't think it takes 6 months. So I'm pretty sure that one's in the can and ready to go whenever they're ready to go. So I would expect to see Lower Decks right after Discovery or Strange New Worlds, whatever is the latter series that's shown. And then we'll see the 2nd season of Star Trek Prodigy. You may think it's the 3rd season because the 1st season of Star Trek Prodigy was broke up between 2 years, but it is actually the 2nd season of Prodigy that's coming up. I'm not a huge fan of that series either. I actually started to like it more during the middle of the 1st season. So I guess during the end of the 1st block of shows. The 2nd block of shows, I thought it was a lot of fan service. And I've said this before, I don't really know who the series is designed for. And sometimes it seems like it's an adult series. Sometimes it seems like a kid series. The one thing that really pulls me out of it is that every time there's commercials, it's all about like slime and like all these like kids, things designed towards kids. So that tells me that this is a series that's designed for kids. So it's hard to bring myself back when, we're talking about serious issues on the show. So it's just a little confusing for me. I think that splitting the 1st season up over a year was a huge mistake. Bully for them for getting 20 episodes in their 1st season. But to break it up like that, I think it was just too much. It completely brought me out of it. So hopefully they don't make that mistake again. And I'm not sure how many episodes there will be in the 2nd season, if it will be 20 or if they'll go back to 10. Most Star Trek series, all the other ones are 10 now, even Lower Decks. One thing that came from the finale, though, that will be interesting to see in the 2nd season is will Kate Mulgrew continue to play the Janeway hologram and the real life Admiral Janeway, or will she just be Admiral Janeway because I believe the hologram was destroyed in the finale. I might like it more if we see the actual Janeway because there were parts of the hologram Janeway that seemed very foreign to me that really didn't seem like the actual character, which I guess in a way makes sense because it's a hologram based on the actual character. For me, I'd rather see the real McCoy, so forgive the pun. I'd rather see Catherine Janeway, voiced by Kate Mulgrew. And I actually liked her interaction with the crew a bit more. I wonder if they'll do more guest stars. And that's another thing. If it's a show designed for kids, why bring a character like Okona back? Because nobody that's like under 40 or 30 is going to know that reference. Or the Zindi, there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So I don't know, maybe the 2nd season will bring me along. And then another thing to look out for is, will Star Trek and Paramount be announcing any news about what's going on with their properties. We haven't heard nothing since the last film was canceled, and it's just been crickets. Paramount hasn't said anything. But last year in January is when Star Trek last announced all their renewals, and January just started. So maybe in this month, we will hear some news about, what's going on with the movie. Will there be a new series announced? I know, in the past they said they want to keep 5 series on, and of course Picard will be leaving after this season. So that would leave it open, so to speak, for another series to start. So we'll see. I mean, I'm interested to hear what's going on with the movie. They might be saying that we're not getting another movie for the time being, and I'm really fine with that. Star Wars has already proven that they cannot have a movie, in the pipeline and still be very popular with all the series they're putting out. So Star Trek's going to do that. I'm fine with that, but I would like to hear that announcement, because now it just kind of seems like we have this failed project out there that, nobody wants to touch. And it's kind of a black eye for the franchise. I'm also really looking forward to hear what new series will be announced as well. There have been some really cool ideas out there in the ether, about a Section 31 series, an anthology series, a Janeway series, a 7 series. I would like to see a comedy series. I think I'm going to do a video about that in the near future. I would love to see a full-on Star Trek, Galaxy Quest style live action series. I definitely think they could do it. If you watch Lower Decks, that's a full-on comedy. It's just animated. So even bring Mike McMahon along. He's hilarious. So I really think that would be the next thing, because that's, for one, that's one thing that Star Wars isn't doing, and another thing, the Orville kind of filled the gap of a funny sci-fi series, and now that show went to drama, so there's an opening there for a comedy sci-fi series. And there've been some out, recently. Space Force, which Tawny Newsome from Strange New Worlds is also a part of, is a sci-fi comedy series. So I would like to see a Star Trek comedy series. But let me know in the comments what series you would like to see. And the last thing I want to talk about with Star Trek is there's another rumor out there that Star Trek might be sold to another studio, mainly because Paramount is trying to cut costs and is trying to circle their wagons around their Western properties like Yellowstone and all the spin-offs that show has created, which are uber popular for the network. There's a possibility that Star Trek could be sold to another studio as a full, as just a full package, much like, Marvel and Star Wars were sold to Disney. That would be interesting. I don't know who, you got to think about who's big enough to pick it up. Warner Brothers would probably be the ones that would be the large enough company, or Apple maybe, but Warner Brothers with HBO Max, they have the distribution. So it's a possibility. But of course, if you follow Warner Brothers, they've had a lot of issues, especially with their DC properties, and that might be foreboding. DC, the comic book company DC, is a similar franchise to Star Trek. There's lore there, there's a built-in fan base there. And the WB has not done great by DC, so I don't know if Star Trek would do any better at Warner Brothers. And who knows if that's an act? That's just a rumor out there. There could be nothing behind that. But again, we haven't heard anything about Star Trek for a couple of months, so it's getting kind of scary. I'd like to hear some 2023 plans from Paramount about Star Trek sometime before Star Trek Picard season 3 starts. So outside of Star Trek, there are a few other things I want to talk about. I briefly brought up the Orville. I'm really wondering if the Orville has quietly been canceled. It was moved to Disney Plus, and it has been popular. It's always in the top 10. I follow what the top 10 series that are on each network, and the Orville is always in there. And I think one of the big reasons is if you look at Disney Plus and what they have available, there's nothing really like the Orville on Disney Plus. They have Marvel, they have Star Wars, but they don't really have, there's not really that much else besides Marvel and Star Wars, honestly. So I think that a big reason for the Orville's popularity has been that. But the reasons that I think that it was canceled, for one, all the actors were released from their contracts, I believe, before season 3 ever finished airing, which is never a good sign. It was a very dark third season compared to the first 2. And actually, it could have been even darker. There was an 11th episode called The Orville's Sympathy for the Devil that was released as a comic book. And it was about a child that was raised in a simulator. And because of the simulation that was on when his family was attacked and was killed, and he was left there by himself, he ended up being a sympathizer during World War II. And they had to kind of break him as an adult from that world and bring him into the new world, the real world, so to speak. So it's really interesting that they went so dark with their third season. They had the episode about suicide and the child that was kidnapped. It was really dark, and I don't know why they went that way, but they did. And it was a big swing. You know, they were starting on a new network, and I don't really know if it paid off for them. So I tend to think that show has quietly been canceled. I believe that if we don't hear anything in the first quarter about the Orville, I think it's done. But let me know in the comments. Did you like the third season of the Orville? How do you think it compared to the first two seasons? And do you want to see an upcoming season? There's also an upcoming movie that I think looks really cool. It's called 65. A lot of you may have seen the trailer for it already. It stars Adam Driver, of course, from Star Wars and other things, as a humanoid alien that lands on a planet and is chased by a mysterious force. This mysterious force turns out to be a dinosaur, and the planet is Earth 65 million years ago. Now, that last bit, I believe at first was supposed to have not been released to the public, but it did get released. So they ended up putting it as part of the marketing. The film has been delayed almost a year. It will be released on March 17th, 2023, but it was definitely supposed to be released last year a couple of times. I think it looks cool. I wonder if it's going to be a play on the theory of creation. That aliens crash landed on Earth, they killed off the dinosaurs, and then their descendants are now what humans are. I really wonder if this is just going to be a new take on creationism. But I guess we'll see. I like Adam Driver. Honestly, Star Wars is like one of the things I like him the least in, if I'm being completely honest. The best Star Wars scenes I think he did were on Saturday Night Live. He did a skit where he was where he was like disguised as like a stormtrooper and stuff, and it was really funny. I think that was his best scenes as Kylo Ren. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you're going to see 65. It's released by Sony. It'll be in theaters. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So let me know if you're going to go see it. Another new series that's coming out is The Last of Us, which is an upcoming series on HBO that will be released on January 15th, 2023. This is beginning a wave of video game adaptations that we will be seeing in the upcoming years. After Last of Us, I'm going to talk about Fallout. Borderland is another one that's coming out. But The Last of Us looks to be amazing. It's got Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, both who starred in Game of Thrones. But Pedro Pascal, of course, as the Mandalorian later on. Anna Torv, who you may recognize if you watch Fringe. I know that's a sci-fi series that, like myself, a lot of people like. And as well as Nick Offerman, who played Ron Swanson on Parks and Recreation. So this will be a drama turn for him. I liked the game okay. My feeling about The Last of Us has always been, well, I don't like the second game. The first game, I like the story. I'm not a huge fan of the gameplay. I don't like linear style stories where you have to follow, one path. I like open world. So that's why, I played The Last of Us once and then never picked it up again. But the story is awesome. It kicks off right out of the gate, like with the zombie, breakout, and it's amazing. It really pulls at your heartstrings. It's really something else. I would compare it to the beginning of Dawn of the Dead, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. But in that movie, you don't really care about any of the characters that get knocked off. And this one you do. Or in The Last of Us, you do. So I would especially watch the first episode, because I believe that the outbreak is going to be in the first episode if they follow the game. And you definitely want to watch the first episode. That'll be January 15th, 2023. I'm going to be covering it on this channel as well. I do have one video about it. So if you don't know anything about The Last of Us, check the video out. I'll put it up in the corner here if you're on a mobile device. And if not, I'll put it in the description below. There's no spoilers about the story, so just check it out. The next series I want to talk about is Fallout, another series that I'm really looking forward to. These games are maybe my favorite gaming series ever. I really like BioShock as well, But Fallout, it goes back and forth between Fallout and BioShock. This is being filmed right now, or they completed filming recently. This will be released on Amazon, so the same channel that is releasing Lord of the Rings. And one thing I think is interesting is that a lot of people are lumping Fallout in with Lord of the Rings, even though it hasn't been released yet, just because it's on the same streaming channel. None of the same people are involved in the Rings of Power as are involved in Fallout. So there's really no reason why there should be any similarity between the two series. I think it's funny how, because House of the Dragon has been well received, I think people think The Last of Us is going to be good. If Game of Thrones were the last thing on, maybe everybody would be saying, oh my God, Game of Thrones ended so bad, The Last of Us is going to suck. Like they're kind of saying with Fallout in regards to Rings of Power. I think Fallout is going to be awesome. It's starring Walton Goggins, who, if you don't know who he is, he's probably one of the most underrated actors working today. My favorite character that he's played is Boyd Crowder from Justified. He's also known as Shane from The Shield. He played a really interesting character named Venus from Sons of Anarchy. He's a really great actor. He's done some sci-fi. He was actually in Predators. If you remember The Convict, he was in that film. I think Predators is a very underrated film, by the way, as well. But I think that he's the lead. And if you follow Fallout, he's going to be playing a ghoul. A ghoul is somebody that is a humanoid that has been affected by the radiation from the fallout of the war that occurred that created the events of the series. So it'll be really cool to see. I can envision him. There have been ghouls in the past that have been fast talking, like he is, very loquacious, and I can see him. I can already see him playing the character. Ella Purnell will be playing, I believe, the hero character, more or less the character that if you're playing a Fallout game, the character that you would be following. If the name sounds familiar, Ella Purnell is the voice of Gwen on Prodigy, and it seemed like her character was taking a step back after this season. So I wonder if it's because of her involvement in the series Fallout that she's not able to work on Prodigy as much as she'd like. She was in Zack Snyder's zombie film Army of the Dead, and played a really good role. She was Batista's daughter. So I really look forward to her as the kind of, like I said, the vault dweller, survive, whatever you want to call it, lone wanderer. Kyle MacLachlan is another actor that will be featured on the series. They haven't said who he'll be playing. I think that he'll be playing like an overseer or, somebody in a lab coat. He's done a lot of great stuff. Obviously, he's known for Twin Peaks and Dune and, many other things since then. If you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., he played a great character on that series as well. So I really look forward to this series. It looks like a great cast. The universe is really cool. Again, if you're not familiar with Fallout, I'll put a link to my video about that, and you should definitely check it out because it's a really cool universe to explore. Every game basically is a new story. Very few times do characters kind of cross over, and this will be a totally new story. But we will see, factions and maybe even some characters that we recognize from the games. So I am really looking forward to this. It's probably the thing I'm looking forward to most in 2023. But let me know, what are you excited to see in 2023? Was there something that I didn't cover? Let me know in the comments and I'll try and get it for next week's video. I'm going to try and get these podcasts out every Monday, and these will be in addition to videos that I release. So you'll see a podcast every Monday, and then when news or trailers or episodes come out, you'll see my videos about that as well. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Thank you for joining me for my very first one. Let me know in the comments how I did, and if there's any changes that I should make, please be nice. Remember, this is my first one, and I will see you next time on WDIM News.